Have you ever wondered why a well-planned practical lesson can still fail to engage learners in the first few minutes? Gagné's 9 events of instruction in technical and vocational education and training offers a structured way to design learning that captures attention, builds competence, and supports lasting performance. The model is especially valuable in vocational settings, where learners must understand concepts and apply them safely and confidently in realistic workplace situations. It begins by gaining attention and making the learning objectives clear. Attention can be gained through a surprising question, a short demonstration, a workplace scenario, or an example of what can happen when a task is completed incorrectly. For instance, an electrical installation tutor might show a damaged cable and ask learners to identify the safety risks before explaining the day's lesson. Once interest has been established, learners need to know what they are expected to achieve and why it matters. Clear objectives, such as accurately testing a circuit, following safe isolation procedures, or communicating with a customer, give learners a meaningful purpose for their work. The next event is stimulating recall of prior learning, which helps learners connect new knowledge with familiar ideas and experiences. A tutor might ask motor vehicle learners to recall the checks they completed during an earlier engine inspection before introducing a more advanced diagnostic process. This approach reduces cognitive overload because learners are not starting from nothing. They are building on existing understanding. Presenting the new content then becomes more effective, particularly when tutors use a combination of explanation, demonstration, diagrams, video, equipment, and guided discussion. In technical and vocational education, content should reflect the conditions learners will encounter in employment wherever possible. A hospitality trainer, for example, may explain food safety procedures, demonstrate correct hand washing, show visual reminders of critical temperatures, and then discuss how staff respond during a busy service period. Different methods of presentation support learners with different levels of confidence and experience, while also making complex processes easier to understand. The key is to present information in manageable stages rather than overwhelming learners with every detail at once. Providing learning guidance means helping learners move from watching an expert to performing a task independently. Tutors can use scaffolding by breaking a complex activity into smaller steps, offering prompts, asking guiding questions, and gradually reducing support as competence develops. Modeling is particularly important in practical subjects because learners need to see not only what to do, but also how a skilled professional thinks, checks quality, manages risks, and responds to problems. For example, a construction tutor might talk through each decision while setting out a brickwork course, explaining why accuracy at the first stage affects the finished structure. Learners must then have opportunities to practice and demonstrate performance. Effective practice is purposeful, repeated, and closely linked to realistic tasks rather than being limited to recalling information from a presentation. A learner training in health and social care might practice moving and handling techniques with supervision before applying the skills in a simulated care environment. Practice activities should increase in challenge over time, allowing learners to develop fluency, confidence, and sound professional judgement. Feedback is most useful when it is timely, specific, and focused on improvement. Rather than simply saying that a learner's work is good or poor, a tutor could explain that a weld has a consistent line but requires better heat control to prevent porosity. Constructive feedback should recognize what has been done well, identify the next improvement needed, and give learners a chance to act on the advice. This creates a continuous learning cycle in which learners practice, receive guidance, adjust their approach, and practice again. Assessing performance provides evidence of whether learners have achieved the required knowledge, skills, and behaviors. In vocational education, assessment may include observation of practical work, professional discussion, written questioning, project work, product inspection, simulation, or evidence gathered in the workplace. Assessment should reflect the stated objectives and measure both safe processes and successful outcomes. For example, it is not enough for a learner to repair a component correctly if they have ignored safety procedures or failed to use tools appropriately. The final event is enhancing retention and transfer, ensuring that learning remains useful beyond the immediate lesson or assessment. Tutors can support this by revisiting important skills, varying practice contexts, asking learners to explain their decisions, and setting tasks that require them to adapt what they know to unfamiliar situations. Gagné's 9 events therefore provide a practical sequence. Gain attention, clarify objectives, connect prior learning, present and guide new learning, enable practice, provide feedback, assess performance, and promote lasting transfer. When applied thoughtfully, this approach helps educators create training that is engaging, relevant, workplace-focused, and capable of developing genuine vocational competence.